Okay, so hello and welcome, and we're here at Holistic Investments, and I'm your host, Constantin Kogan. And today I have a special guest, Fabian Vogelsteller, and he's a founder of Lukso. He authored the MIS browser, he authored Ethereum wallet, Web3.js, ERC20 protocol, and ERC-725 protocol. So we have a lot to talk, and really excited to have you here, Fabian.
Thanks, yeah, nice to be here.
Yes, and so to begin with, we traditionally start with the disclaimer. So this content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or any other advice. So we're going to talk today about self-sovereign identity. That's how I was advised to talk to you, because you're the go-to person to talk about it. But you have so much things that you actually created for the Ethereum community and generally for the blockchain. Like, you're one of the pioneers. Like, I mean, whoever understands what is an ERC20 contract, and I understand that you and Vitalik actually created it, I think that's already like a huge achievement. So I would love to start just with your journey. How did you start, and when did you start, even thinking about participating in coding and crypto?
Yeah, this is a long time ago, actually, now, in the crypto space. So actually, I heard about Bitcoin in 2013. My background is a web developer. Actually, my studied background is Master of Fine Arts because I studied media design. So. But I do, learn coding on the side by myself and became a web developer over time. Actually, my Twitter handle, Feindura, is the content management system that I created in 2008 or something. It's still there. If you go to Feindura.org, it's still that content management system that literally, I made this Twitter account for. So basically, I learned about Bitcoin. I was really interested in all of this because it was revolutionary, and it was pretty clear to me right when I dig down into it. And I had this first year, this kind of revelation moments all the time, thinking, oh my God, now I understood it. Every month I thought, now I understood it. And then the next month, and now I understand it. And it took me really a year to really think through this, because it was really breaking all the concepts. You break the concept of money, and then you break the concept of what is value, and you on the end learn is all just trust, and this is all just what we believe as a community, and that's literally what it is. Thinking that we're walking around with a piece of paper with numbers on it is a big joke, and we will in the future look back and think what the heck was that? Why was that okay? And it's really just exactly that, trust. And in 2015, I had the chance to join the Ethereum Foundation because I actually moved to Berlin, where I live. And they opened up an office here. I was following the project already since a while. I was really excited about it because it was the first blockchain project that really just thought about just money and making wallets and all of this stuff. But I was thinking about using blockchain as a protocol to actually run any program, which makes it extremely flexible. And it came out of this whole idea of Mastercoin, where you could build things on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. Mm-hmm. And I already liked that project too, not because it made any sense in the long run, but because it was a novel. And Ethereum, it felt for me this is a different thing. That's a real game changer. And when they moved to Berlin, and then literally I met them at some co-working space opening. I met some people from there that told me they're opening an office here, and the next day they actually started their fundraising. Actually, I met Aaron Buchanan at the time. He was the finance something guy in the early days, and he, they literally made the fundraising the next day, and a week later they were sitting on 31,000 Bitcoin, and it took a few more months until they got themselves settled and organized and so on. And the funny thing is, I got actually a recruiter writing me, hey, this company Ethereum is looking for a C++ developer. And I'm not a C++ developer, but recruiters are like this. They don't seem to know shit about nothing, and they just Google, you're a software engineer. But the funny thing is, it told me, okay, wow, now they seem to be settled down and organized enough that they're looking for people. So I went to the office, actually, talked to them again. And, it happened to be so that they wanted to build the Mist browser. Alex van der Sande had the idea of the Mist browser. He came up with the concept, a concept which is actually still not even fully fulfilled yet. Mm-hmm. There's a video that you can watch that he made back in the day that literally describes everything of what even now will happen in Lukso in the future and all of these things. I mean, he has really seen it already very early on. And he needed someone to help him build this. And I happened to, be a full stack developer. I wrote a book about Meteor.js, which was a full stack framework. So it was all coming really well together. And, January 2015, I joined the Ethereum Foundation.
So now I guess you're grateful for the recruiter who actually introduced you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I already kind of knew them. So it was really just a hint again. Okay, now they're looking. I was already kind of in contact with them anyway because of this co-working space meetup there. But interesting enough, so this was 6 months before we started the mainnet. And in this time, together with Alex, I built the Mist browser, which was the first decentralized web browser, where we tried to implement this idea of a full decentralized web browser that doesn't use servers, but uses smart contracts, where the code runs locally, only in your browser as a full stack, or as a single page app, how they called it back then, single page app application. And we really tried to do it the real way. That also showed us where the friction points are. And, once the chain grew and it became very slow to start Mist up because you needed to synchronize the chain. Also the friction with people needing gas, they're needing Ether first in order to pay for the transactions, and all of the things became kind of clear. But we really set the stage not only for showing people what can be developed, but also how and what are the core pieces. And along the way of building this, we had to build all the core pieces. We literally had to go there and come up with a concept of how a browser talks to a DApp, and building Web3.js, this library that you use as a developer to talk to smart contracts. And we had to make all of this stuff up along the way and improve it. And it's still the foundation of the Ethereum space today. DeFi is built on ERC20, for example. Every DApp is built on Web3.js, or let's say a lot of DApps are built on Web3.js, but almost every is built on that Ethereum provider thing that the browser uses to talk to the DApp and so on. And funny enough, I had my hands in all of those things. Actually, I was really pushing a lot of those things, including the Ethereum provider and so on. But that was probably just being at the right time, at the right place, and being a bit more outgoing than other developers who were more introverted, I guess.
Yeah, it's someone told that the developing Mist back in the day, so it was Netscape Navigator did developing web long time ago, right? So it's very early. There's not enough infrastructure right now where people are using Brave, even DuckDuckGo, and some there are some equivalents, decentralized browsers. But yeah, I don't know how many people even understand that Mist was a precursor to all the efforts to any immutable ledger technologies. And I think
and the interesting thing is, I think Alex made a rundown and a calculation of how many times it was downloaded, and it was downloaded 15 million times.
Wow.
I think in total. And the funny thing is, it did not even have a website. In order to download it, you had to go to GitHub, to the release page, and download it from there. So it was not the easy. It was not the easy app to get. But because if you wanted to interact with Ethereum and with smart contracts, and you're fully technical, that was the only way. So everybody.
So it was mostly, I assume that was mostly tech people who actually developers, people who are around this world, because and not everyone knows how to use GitHub. Let's put it this way.
That's true, but it was actually, I guess, all the early investors had to learn it. I mean, they had to at least find it, and find the right link to get it. So, and funny enough, for example, when the DAO happened. And when you wanted to interact with the DAO and buy these tokens and interact with the DAO itself, people use the Mist browser and the Ethereum wallet. We built this feature in the Ethereum wallet where you could interact with any smart contract. So what you have today in Etherscan, when you can go to a contract and then read the contract or write the contract, that's this thing we built in the Ethereum wallet. Actually, Alex built that page. And it really allowed you to interact with these smart contracts in a, there was a user interface. You didn't have to use a command line or know how to code, which was already a huge improvement, for the investor type that wanted to also participate. So it was necessary kind of at the time.
So, and then maybe let's talk also in few words about the some other I would say inventions of yours, right? So also Web3.js, right? You also had millions of downloads and people were excited about. So let's explain maybe in a nutshell, what is it?
So basically, if you are a JavaScript developer, means you're coding for the web. Interacting with smart contracts is a bit more hard because not only you can talk to the node and say execute this function, but actually you have to encode your calls into something that's called an ABI. So it looks just like a bunch of gibberish. And that gibberish actually you then send in a transaction. And that gibberish, in the transaction is executed in the smart contract engine of Ethereum called the EVM. And that's where things are happening. But for a normal developer, they could never, deal with this. So Web3.js is kind of translating whatever functions you want to call into this ABI, and it makes it convenient to interact with smart contracts. And for a JavaScript developer, it feels like interacting with a normal JavaScript object, calling functions, setting parameters, getting results, and so on. And this really was an essential tool. It was initially built by the very early version was built by Jeff Ray, who built the Go Ethereum client, and then also Gavin worked on it. But then the main work of the first versions were done by Marek. Marek was hired at the time as well. And then at some point I overtook it and I built the 1.0, which is the version everybody's still using today, funny enough. Mm-hmm. And yes, it became a very backbone of it, of the Ethereum space in general. And if you look at the developer space in the blockchain space, most of them are Ethereum developers. And of that, a lot of people are using this. That's why this library has 1 million downloads a month, for example.
We're talking about Marek Kotevich, right? Yeah.
Yes, correct. Exactly.
Okay.
I forgot his last name just now. It's not an easy last name, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Europe, so I can still pronounce it, right? So he's also in Berlin, if I'm remembering correctly.
I'm not sure where he's right now, but he was in Berlin for a long time. I've seen him traveling a lot, so I guess he's wherever right now.
So are you in contact with him or any other
not really directly anymore. We were working every day together in back in the days in Ethereum and the Ethereum hub here in Berlin. At some point he moved out with Gavin to Parity. Building the Parity client and building more tools there. And, this group was then kind of separated from the Ethereum Foundation group where I was working. I was also part of the Go Ethereum team. There was always a little bit this kind of twist between the Gavin C++ team and the Go team. And I tried to make them talk and tried to make them, talk, really, actually.
Charles Hoskinson?
So Charles was not really part of Ethereum. He was really early out. He was basically part of the very, very early days where there was not really anything running or built. Mm-hmm. And he was one of these ominous 12 founders that's supposed to exist. But yeah, that's not really, I wouldn't really call him a founder because that you're not a founder because you showed up at some party at some point. Yeah, you're a founder because you're actually building something for a while. And he hasn't done any of that. As far as
you consider the real core developers of Ethereum, in your opinion?
First and foremost, obviously Vitalik with the idea, and he has been the wise wizard, very young wizard of Ethereum. But then obviously Jeffrey Wilke, who built the Go Ethereum client, and Gavin Wood, who wrote the yellow paper, especially Gavin. They are the core foundation. And then there was a lot of people like me and Marek and Alex and other people who, Christian Reitwiesener, for example, building Solidity, a person that is highly undervalued in this space, if you think about it, because he literally built and still building today the smart contract language of the blockchain town, let's say. Mm-hmm. And there's a few others that played an important role and did work. And there's obviously the more hidden ones, the more quiet ones. I guess one name to also drop is Felix. He actually built the networking layer and which is also a very crucial piece of Ethereum. But he's a very like more hidden person, not really like the spotlight guy. I mean, it was an effort of a lot of people, and now, for example, it's an effort of even more people, and there's different groups of working on different clients, and there's these 2 clients, the Prism team, and all the other clients that are building. A lot of people sitting in Singapore and so on. So it's a very diverse, growing like community, and that's just the internal Ethereum Foundation group. Right, and then you have all the people on the outside, which is just so many more groups and people and companies around it. So, yeah,
it's a huge community. That's for sure. I mean, Ethereum right now is, if you're talking about the community that actually has founders and has people who are core developers, that's still #1 community in terms of numbers and people.
By far.
So
probably by far, yeah.
Yeah. So let's maybe really quickly recap like the creation of ERC20, because I think that's also like a very important milestone in the development of Ethereum by itself. Like, and now everybody every person who's sending right now, let's say USDT or any like Ethereum based crypto, they're like, oh, send me ERC20 token, right? And then there are other standards, but this is something that is already like almost like in the dictionary of crypto for long, right? So maybe you can say a few words. How did you create it? Like, maybe you work directly with Vitalik on it, like, maybe a history.
Yeah, I mean, the story is actually quite simple. I mean, the story was that Vitalik created this, there was this little wiki page that we used. Everybody could just edit this wiki page. And he felt the need to standardize like some things. And he wrote like this draft of like a token, how a token could work, and also how a registry could work. And then we were in this wiki page and we discussed a little bit, but there was a really bad place to discuss because it was a wiki page. And I changed a little bit of things up, and other people discussed and changed a few things. And there was this coincidence that at the time, Martin BC, the guy who actually wrote EWASM later, he actually created this EIP repository, the Ethereum Improvement Proposal repository, which was meant to discuss protocol changes in the future. So how, the consensus can change and how like the EVM can change and all of these things. And I kind of felt like this is actually a great place to also have a standards discussion around smart contracts. And I felt like we need to have the input of the community to really like think, what does it make sense? Can we move forward and so on? So I took this initial draft that we discussed in the wiki page and wrote a proper specification. I called it ERC Ethereum request for comment, because there's this RFC request for comment process already in the old web. I thought it's a good name. So it sounds cool, let's do it. And I just called it ERC, and it was the issue number 20. That was just a coincidence. And I wrote the specification really simple. I think that's like also important to have something that's like easy to digest. It's like, it feels like very little. It's not like this monster. Today we have smart contract standards where people like almost books in there, and it's like, come on. I mean, this is not helpful in any way, in my opinion. But so what happened is like we really started discussing. Funny enough, the standard from the first comment on to, the whole adoption barely changed really. It was really the initial draft with like a little bit of change from me and maybe some few changes on these approval functions. And that's how we kept it. I think 64 people that participated in this conversation, 380 something comments. And that's how, the thing got rolling. I mean, people like started using it. One funny side story is that the DigX project, which made this digital gold at the time, they wanted to launch their token for their, for their digital gold or for their DAO or whatever. And they were like, not patient enough, waiting how this whole like token things plays out around ERC20. So they already like launched their own custom token they have built. Launched it. A few months later, they had to change it because obviously ERC20 was the standard now, and their token was completely incompatible with all the other wallets that came up now. But yeah, I wouldn't have really expected that this token. I mean, I knew it was an important piece, and I guess also everybody knew there was an important piece to have this thing of token standard. I wouldn't have expected at first it goes like that big, and second, it's all turns out to be like about money raising and this whole ICO wave that came out of it. It went a bit nuts. And now everything, I mean, the funny thing is everything we have today is still based on that standard. All the DeFi comes out, uses ERC20.
It is the most popular technical standard by far.
Yeah, probably. I mean, definitely in the blockchain space.
In the blockchain, of course.
Yeah, and it's also the first smart contract standard, and it kicked off this wave of standardization, and that's also something, you know, what I'm doing now with Lukso is like really rethinking this a little bit, because the standard space in Ethereum became very noisy. Everybody wants to propose a standard, and that's great, and some are really useful. Some are trying to just push this because they want to push their project, because I think if you are now proposing a standard, that means we're so important. But then there's also the problem that everybody, like, they want to improve, but because it's so noisy and so many now, it's really hard to kind of like step back and see, okay, how does this stuff works together? How does it works in concert? And does this make sense the way it works right now? And the truth is, you know, like it's a huge mess. I mean, that's why the only real standard adopted is ERC20, you know, and everything. And now 7-to-1 a little bit, which is also not really ideal, which also, by the way, came out of ERC20. It's literally just a very slight change on top of ERC20. A bit more now, but it was initially. And it's still like all very much around the same. It's all about token. It's all about... And it's not much about how do we interact together with smart contracts. How can we make sure that when I transfer a token to a smart contract, that the smart contract actually knows about it? How can we agree on something universal, that not every asset now comes up with their own custom function that a smart contract would need to implement? So that's kind of like also led me in Lukso to really, I mean, one of the reasons of creating Lukso is not only like to create this new blockchain for like this new digital lifestyle space, but also to have actually a more neutral space around these standards that we need in order to get real blockchain adoption. One is identity, and the other is how these tokens talk to each other and how these NFTs talk to each other, and rethinking also NFTs in itself. This is the really core components that we need right now in order to really move this whole thing forward. Because as it is right now in Ethereum, it's more of a mess. It's more of a It's a bit of a gimmick, you know, like it looks good in the outside, but under the hood, you look at it, it's like a joke. There's a bunch of marketplaces. They all have their own NFT registries, and then random keys like issue an ID in there, and that's the NFT.
Yeah, so this is another topic that we probably now have a transition to talk about, the ERC-725 and the self-sovereign identity challenge, right? We talked about offline a little bit, like, you know, how there's a big difference between, like, you know, hard and soft identity. So we'd love you to explain a little bit, my viewers, you know, like what is the difference, and how do you actually, are you improving the understanding of how you can protect your identity in the modern world where, like, Telegram users can be hacked, or anyone can be impersonated, you, me, anyone who's listening to this right now. So how can we solve the basic issues with identity?
Yeah, so this is a tough topic, obviously, and exactly because everybody sees it as tough, as you just described it, everybody has approached it like that. And that's, in my opinion, is actually the issue, right? I mean, it hasn't been seen as something fun and easy. It has been seen as something as like, oh my God, privacy and like my personal data and locking everything in. And that's exactly why adoption is so hard around it, because like, whatever project comes up and says we have this identity solution, like it's really hard to get adoption around this, because they're all like you don't upload all your super important information now into a random new project and then hope it gets adopted.
Yeah,
that's why I think the differentiation between soft and hard identity is important. So as hard identity, I see exactly what like the identity movement, self-sovereign identity movement has been focusing on in the last years. That is trying to create this like private, privacy-focused identity system that allows selective sharing and all of this. But in order to make this possible, a lot of pieces need to be adopted. And that's exactly why it hasn't been adopted so far, widely. And it's about like your personal data, your passport, like maybe financial, maybe health data that you want to share with different institutions, blah, blah, blah. And the problem about this, because like I described, it's hard identity. It's like something that you take really serious. You take very long to think if you want to put that anywhere and so on. There's the other thing, which is soft identity, that I call soft identity. And that's literally what we do in the internet, right? Social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, that's soft identity, because we just put stuff there. It represents our, avatar, our gaming character. It's our Steam account. It's, it's the thing that it's like not the worst thing that, like, if people know about it, because especially you even want to be very public about it sometimes. It's not the worst thing if, like, you lose it sometimes. Depends on how much effort you spend in it. But it's soft because it's not the data attached to it is not super high risk personal data. It's more like soft data, even made up data, right? Even a made up avatar, a made up picture, a made up name, right? And when we take these kind of soft identities, it's far more fun to play with them. And blockchain is very good at making things transparent and making things verifiable. So creating a public blockchain-based account, like, is the most logical thing to do. And on top of this, you can also have an anonymous account, and then you have the exact same anonymity than when you are using any key on the blockchain right now, right? So if you have a key with an address and you have assets there, anybody can see this. They just don't know it's you. You can also have a smart contract-based account that has a gimmicky Mickey Mouse, and nobody knows it's you. And you can have any asset there and do whatever stuff you want. So we can have this privacy to some degree, like more like anonymity or pseudonymity. And we can have this publicity, which works even more well because it's very transparent and verifiable. So I have been, like, thinking about this topic a while, and I created 2017 the standard called ERC-725. And it came out of, like, a project that I did with BCG, where, like, they asked me to think about identity for the Australian Post at the time, years ago. And they were thinking, and I just thought, okay, how can this be? Obviously, we can make a smart contract, and we can make the smart contract be controllable by multiple keys and so on. So thinking about this, I then had the urge or the feeling that I should create a standard out of it. I should propose a standard. The funny thing is, at the time, it was really Uport that was leading the pack in blockchain identity. And I really waited for them and thought, okay, they should do it. I mean, they have a company, doing this kind of stuff, so they should do it. They didn't do it because they actually moved away from blockchain identity more to off-chain identity. And there are reasons for that, especially because they were working on the hard identity problem, right? But I thought it still needs to exist. Like, an on-chain account system should exist, and it's necessary and it's essential. And, I proposed it. It was laying around for a few years. There were a bunch of people being hyped about it. There was an alliance being formed by other people, and they all wanted to use it. And I think, like, there was not a lot of adoption actually around it, the real adoption, which really matters. But a lot of people talked about it. It became, like, relevant. It's even part of a book now. But now with Lukso, we have a very real reason creating and actually fostering this identity standard and actually using it. So funny enough, I end up, now finally developing it out, which before I was just thinking, like, I put it there and people will do all of that. Turned out they were, I guess, waiting for me to do it. I don't know. So now I do it. But it's really essential because it changes completely the way of how we can interact with blockchain. And because if I have a smart contract-based account, I can attach information, and maybe it's a good point actually to share my screen and show a little bit how this can look like with your little profile that you created before. So basically, the benefit of this is I can have an account, right, that literally can look like a normal Web2 account, because I can have a smart contract that can have information attached to it, but not just information that's readable by an interface like here, but also information that's also readable by other smart contracts. And that's where it becomes really relevant, right? I could, like, have verifiable claims, or I could have, like, all kind of information that's readable and checkable by another smart contract. That means, because that's a smart contract-based account, I can interact on a blockchain. I can hold assets. I can talk to smart contracts. I can talk to a DEX. I can talk to an NFT. I can move an NFT. I can split an NFT. I can create an NFT. I can do whatever I want on a blockchain. But I can also have, like, information that other smart contracts can verify. And more importantly, let's look at your profile again. Which one was it?
Yeah, find it. See.
more importantly, I can also control that better, because under the hood, it's not just one smart contract, it's actually three. There's a smart contract that holds your information. That's your important address. This is the thing you see in the background, is AA23. That's your real smart contract that will talk to all the other smart contracts. But it can also have a key manager, means it can have another smart contract that allows you to like have multiple keys that control this account. And then we can actually create now a user experience that's far more suiting, because now I can have multiple devices controlling the same account. You know, I could have a browser extension controlling the same account. I could have this thing on my phone. I could even give like an app a key, restrict that key to only do certain things. And now I can use this app, like just click, 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 and it uses my blockchain account under the hood. And I don't even need to think about how it does this and who's paying for what gas and what transactions are being done. It's just automatically, right? And that's exactly the user experience we want on blockchain. And that is the essence that allows us to create something like a creative economy, allows us to really have like this digital lifestyle. Because if I don't have a identifiable profile, then how it looks like is you can look into, for example, to the, I mean, one funny example is actually Gucci was issuing an NFT, and they did it in Sora, which is an NFT marketplace. And they basically, what it is, it's Sora's smart contract, Sora's NFT smart contract. Gucci issued one ID in there, whatever random ID, from a random key that has done 3 transactions. So if you look on the blockchain, all you see is random key made an ID. And right now you can see on the website, oh, that's Gucci, wow, and I can buy it for whatever, 10K or whatever, important. But give it 2 years in the future. I mean, anybody looking back to this have no idea that this was Gucci. Probably the guy who like created the key in Gucci itself doesn't have it anymore. It's all lost, you know. Any proof and verifiability is gone, because nobody cared about that key and that account. And that's exactly not the way to do it, right? The way you want to do it is you want to have a profile that's manageable by the whole corporation in a very complex way, where even the intern could have some rights acting through and even doing things through the official Gucci profile. That is the one that gains the reputation on chain, maybe even has a follower system attached to it where you have like millions of followers, whatnot. And that's the smart contract that does all the important stuff on chain, issues the assets, issues the physical collection, the digital collections, you know, assigns messages if it needs to, prove, you know, statements to be true. Any of this stuff could happen when you have like this basic identity problem solved, which we have solved actually. And
so you have already a lot of users. So this is testnet, and so far already thousands of people created their accounts, right? So just
yeah. So this is sitting on our test network, on the first version of the test network. And so there's this marketplace called the Dematerialized, which is this one here, and it has been doing some drops. In fact, even very expensive drops, like these 3 items here from the artifact and the fabricant, sold for 9,000 euros actually. It has done some drops, and you know, right now people buy them and they get them on this test network, and they will receive them on mainnet later. So for now, they cannot transfer them. So now it's a pure hodl, basically. And this is also to test all of these standards and how this all comes together. Mm-hmm. And
but what would be my incentive to buy this, if I'm asking you? So, for example, I buy something like, you know, an Omega on your platform for $9,000, right? So, and then, like, obviously, like, you know, the first thing comes to my mind, like, you know, okay, so I hold it, and then later I will resell it with a better value, right? You know, so.
Yeah, so that's a boring use case. I mean, actually, it was sold by the Dematerialized marketplace, but the point of digital fashion, and that really brings us into the digital fashion topic. The point of digital fashion is actually creating 3D items that you could wear, you know, in a selfie. Like you take a picture wearing this, and it like follows your body. That's something, for example, we're working on as well. But it's also something that you could wear in a game, and it's also something, especially, you could wear in VR, right? Here, a little VR right there, right? If you're in VR. It's just fun to like, you know, be yourself, look the way you want to look, and also have things that are unique and that are scarce. So digital fashion will literally be a massive thing in this new digital lifestyle, includes VR, AR, and so on. And so it's not only about like buying this because of whatever future value, but also buying this because buying a piece of history, buying actually the artifact and the fabricant are the two topmost important digital fashion brands right now existing. I mean, they were very early, and they're the ones who leading the pack right now. But they are the cool guys, right? So, let's say.
So I'll be able not only to buy it, but also to wear it, like, and showcase it in my virtual reality mode, like, any application that I'm using, right?
True. I mean, this is obviously depending on the platforms adopting this, but it's all based on standards and also the way of how the 3D files work and how you can load them into a game and so on. All of this needs to be standardized in order to really create this economy. But yes, because you have this NFT, it can have exactly that use case in the future. And the initial use case would be the wearing in AR, for example. And obviously, if it accrues value, you have a part of that value. Or you may just be the OG, coming with the Omega dress in the digital cocktail party. So it's just up to you, whatever you think is cooler.
What are the other use cases? Let's talk about other different use cases that are less boring. Let's put it this way.
Like for digital fashion NFTs, or?
Yeah. For now. So for example, I create a profile, right? So I want to understand there are multiple things I can do with it. I can obviously showcase it to my friends, but how can I interact with, like, or maybe in the future with other applications? What can I do, like, the first. So
I mean, right now, because this is on the test network, it's for us testing these standards. And obviously the drops on Dematerialized, they're selling them because this is like a new thing and NFT is a hype. And because digital fashion is the future, but also the people buying them actually right now for hodling, like, because we have no transfer functionality enabled in this. I mean, if they know how to use the blockchain, they could literally do that. But we want to automate creators' profiles. So the moment you make them transferable, it gets very messy and very hard to do so. So right now, this is basically a hodling thing. And there's some people who are hodling very, very well. The interesting thing is that I mean, every time people come and wanted to join these drops, and these drops were sold out in minutes, right? So hundreds of people signed up, and then only a few got it. Every time we created a digital profile, a universal profile smart contract for them, which is on the testnet right now. And then people could actually edit those. And we have over 3,000 profiles, and many of them, edit those. We can see this. I can reload this page lots of times, and you always see like different people, including you just now there. They all like people really like this whole idea and concept. And also to do this, and you have just tried this before yourself, you didn't have anything to do with blockchain. You didn't see transactions, you didn't pay for gas, you didn't see gibberish that you didn't understand. It was just click, 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 and was done. But what you end up having now is a smart contract based profile that you could attach any information you want ever in the future. Any protocol that somebody comes up with could be glued in there and linked from there. You have full control because you're the one who has the keys. You could, once we have all of these convenience tools to interact with them, obviously move that outside of that website and have it and use it as a login, for example, or use it in all kinds of different applications. So it really creates this and gives us this basis for this one account vision, or maybe let's say 5 account vision, right? Where you have 5 accounts that you use in the internet. One is public, the others, some are private, the other are maybe like for your gamer identity that you want to keep separate from, your whatever adult friends. And that's the accounts that you use and you log in via scanning QR codes or clicking, okay. And that's the kind of user experience that we want to have if we want to interact with the internet, because right now, it's exactly the opposite. Right now, it's basically signing up all the time, creating an account for every little website again. And that's just cumbersome and annoying and insecure.
So I would agree with you. So let me ask you, like, in terms of other profiles. So for example, the average crypto user has like Twitter, Telegram, right, and maybe probably many other accounts, like at least 5, I would say, like social media accounts. So how would you be able to consolidate those accounts and make sure that, like, how do you see the use case, the practical? For example, number one, that I can use the one universal account and then maybe somehow simplify my life to share it with others and not to be able to share like 5 links. So maybe let's go like, to simple use case scenarios for people who already have social media.
I mean, so for example, there is obviously this website called Linktree, right? Linktree is like a place. Hey, here, look, there's my Linktree, and this is actually what you get here. I guess. Okay, Karina has only one, so let's go to the Dematerialized, for example. If you go, I'm not sure if you're seeing this, but if you make this smaller, you now basically have, actually it goes even more small, but there's a mobile view that Safari doesn't let me go to, funny enough. But there's links here, right? So you have like one place that you can go and find all the other places. I mean, eventually, if this is the account that really has a decentralized reputation system, even has a decentralized feed attached to it, something that is uncancelable, thinking of cancel culture, undestroyable, as 100% in control of yourself, of you. It really is like this decentralized account that you can control and that you start to care about. Actually, this account becomes relevant, more so than all of these little silo accounts like Twitter and Instagram and so on. Obviously, over time, decentralized versions of this, of Instagram and Twitter, will be built, and they require such an account to function in the first place. Right now, you might want to just reference your old Web 2 platforms. That's fine. That's fine too, right? But on the end, if you want to do something on the blockchain, if you want to own an NFT, or in this case, Lukso, these account standard also works for any other blockchain, obviously. But specifically Lukso, if you want to own an NFT, you want to interact with stuff, you need such an account, right? Otherwise, you're just a key, and keys are obviously complicated.
Yeah. So you'll be able to hold, like, accumulate all the different accounts to even hold, like, your creations, and that's already, like, I can see a very clear benefit in this. But let me ask you openly, like, because are you thinking in the future about this other, like, social media components? Like right now, unfortunately, we live in the instant gratification model of life where people are selling their followers, right? Basically, like, if you want to post from Kim Kardashian, right, you need to pay whatever, like, I don't even know the price, like maybe $1 million, right? Why? Because she has a huge following, right? Now, and this is what it actually became, like, the identity matters as long as it, like, there's a large amount of followers, right? In your case, how do you envision the transformation, hopefully more reasonable, right? Where people probably would start caring less about, the followers, but will care more about the privacy and the ability to control your keys and to preserve everything in one place.
I mean, I think it's always, it all comes down to making this stuff fun to use and making it easy to use. And also making use cases that are fun. And digital fashion, for example, is a fun use case. Mm-hmm. I think, like, through the entertainment route, through the things that are easy and fun and they feel light, you get people in, and then people start realizing at some point, oh wow, now I have this very powerful thing here that I didn't even know I was getting, right? Because they're not going there because it's decentralized, or they're not going there because now I'm blockchain, whatever. They're going there because they can do something fun, and now they start to realize what power they have. And that's exactly the only way of how this really, like, can be adopted. And it's a blockchain, its basic standards. It's on the end, people can do whatever they want. They can build whatever they want. I think what will happen literally here is, with these core standards that we have proposed and the network we're starting specifically for this digital lifestyle space, and the gas, I mean, the network cost is cheaper. You can now, with the standards, use relay service. It means you can even hide the transaction from the user as an app, or you can even have public. You can have a whole business model around relay services to make people subscribe for transactions that they can use on the network. Mm-hmm. And what will happen is that we are building basically like a core piece, like identity, some NFTs. We will come up with other standards, but the whole community can come up with other protocols that now people can, like, attach to their profile. And it's up to, the community and even competing protocols that now, we can determine what do we want to attach, what do we want to use. So if somebody comes up with a follower system that's more transparent, maybe weight-based than what we have right now, where it's simply about the follower count, maybe that's the thing that will win. and people will start attaching this to their universal profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a decentralized Twitter feed, or maybe it's like some kind of tipping mechanism that you can now add to your profile, and now it's easy to tip with a one click. So this is like the basis to actually create a really decentralized social network that consists not only of one website and one player building it all, but basically a common network that can have many websites. This universal profile website is just one little representation of that profile.
Mm-hmm.
This can like be in all the other websites too, that same exact profile. Because this profile here, believe it or not, doesn't have a database in the background. This website here, how it's loaded, there's no database here. It's actually loading things. There's a caching layer in the middle, but it's loading the things from the blockchain directly. And then it goes to IPFS and fetches the images and JSON documents that hold text and so on.
How do you have the speed of transactions if you're going to have like millions of users?
Reading obviously is not the problem. It's about writing. And so the Lukso blockchain itself is, it consists out of an ETH1, so Ethereum 1 execution engine. So we can run smart contracts the way we can do this on Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very compatible to the space, to the tools, and everything where it's the biggest knowledge and the biggest developer community. But we also are using ETH 2.0 proof of stake consensus. So actually our network is literally the way how the ETH2 network is supposed to be. But we're already starting it now, and we can be more agile and more quick, because we will start with one shard. We have built it in such a way that we can add more shards in the future. And we don't have to take the Ethereum network with us. So that's the big benefit we have over like the Ethereum Foundation, for example. They have to be far more thoughtful about how to transition their network, or the Ethereum network, while we just started from scratch. So transactions per second is obviously higher. We have the same decentralization like ETH 2.0. So this is all thanks to, obviously, Ethereum, right? That's where I'm coming from. That's where we are coming from. We're building on top of the shoulders of giants. But we have also really did this novel thing of putting these pieces together in a novel way. So there's a lot of transactions per second possible. And obviously the network is empty in the beginning, right? And getting to the level of busyness of the Ethereum network will take a little bit, let's say.
Yeah.
And then we have 10 times or even 50 times or 100 times more than that.
So where can people see the roadmap? Like, what's in the plans, and maybe you can show really quickly, and then you can maybe stop sharing the screen and talk about I also want to talk about how do you monetize something like that, right? I think that's what people are also curious about, because, creating layer one solution, it's always not like that easy, to understand, if you're betting on the basically raise the awareness of the project, and then like Lukso, the token obviously will increase. That's one level, but maybe there are some other things that people just don't see, and you can explain a little bit the monetization model. Yeah.
So what's the business model? The business model is there's no business model.
That's the point.
There's no business model. It's a blockchain. So obviously it's about creating this common infrastructure, and this common infrastructure, the more it's being used and the more people are, working on this, obviously the more valuable it will get. So if you want to think in terms of what's the value growth, demand on the network will grow the value. That's the same like Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything else. There's a very clear need for Lux, the token, or like the coin actually, or the cryptocurrency, however you want to call it, because that network without Lux wouldn't work. It's a proof of stake network. You need to pay for transaction fees, otherwise, the network is not secure.
The utilities pay for the fees, basically, right? The main one.
Yeah, it's the same utility like Ether or Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. This is literally the main utility. People will obviously use it for whatever else on this network. Paying for stuff, locking into smart contracts, whatever. That's like a complete open box.
Staking later, probably, right?
Obviously, staking in the network. Yes, you have to use Lux to stake. That's how the consensus runs. But it's really it's the fuel of the network. Same like Ethereum has Ether as a fuel. That is the business model per se. On top of that, now a lot of things can be built. And obviously we are, as the Lukso blockchain, we are building the core tools, building the network, building the initial versions of the network, obviously, building the standards, building tools to use the standards. And we're also building and supporting some applications that are important to show what can be done and how it can be done. For example, the Dematerialised marketplace, and we've been supporting Fanzone, which is like this soccer card collectible project. And so this is important to really just showcase what can be done until this becomes a self-runner. And it also helps us foster and improve these standards, because a lot of this stuff, has to be like, the other parameters have to be adjusted in order to see, is it flexible enough? Is it open enough? Because we don't want to have biased stuff that works like for this one app, but it doesn't work for all the others, because like being done so custom and so biased that nobody ever wants to adopt that. So making sure that it's flexible enough, but also open enough. And
so when is your mainnet is going to be up, and how can people actually help you right now support the project?
I mean, so like, let's say about the biggest help, obviously, if you want to get into building on Lukso and learning about the standards in this tech, then go on GitHub, read the LSP, the Lukso standards proposal, join our Discord, discuss. That's really the most help. If you want to buy, you can buy on exchanges, you can buy on Uniswap, but that's completely like, that's where this is outside of our realms. This is what people do. There was a public ICO that we did that lasted actually 8 months, where people could contribute. That's how we raised around 20 million, and that's how we are funded. So the money is not exactly the limit, but it's really about like getting interest in this. But there's also a thing is like, I don't want to have too much traction also on developers now, because there's still a lot of core pieces we need to build. And the more people now come ask questions, the less time we have to build. So we need to first build it and give them the easy tools, and then they can hope they go, and it's a one-liner. And that's what we are working towards, making it very fun and easy to do.
You also did a very interesting fundraising structure. I want to say a few words about this, like, the so-called like reverse ICO, so to speak, right? So can you say a few words about it? Like, why did you come up with this decision, and how did you actually structure it?
Yeah. I will also come back to the mainnet question, because obviously yes. I admitted that.
I will repeat it, don't worry.
Completely professional, admitted. No, I mean, so the reversible ICO was really the thing is, I kind of kicked off the ICO wave by proposing ERC20, by writing the standard and being adopted. And obviously, when I was thinking about making a blockchain together with Marjorie, I really thought like, I don't want to just make an ICO. That would be weird. Also, there's a lot of really scammy ICOs that happen, and it was all weird. I also wanted to think about how could I improve this whole ICO mechanism. So I came up with this idea of saying, okay, people have to log in Ether to participate in the ICO, and they're buying the tokens over a fixed period of time, which we set to 8 months. And over that time, we basically like linear receive portion of the Ether, but they could always decide to send the tokens back that are already held to get the portion of the Ether out that is not yet unlocked, that's not yet flown to us. So basically, it's almost like you're putting something in an account where we can deduct from. And you can always say, I closed the account, or I closed part of the account.
Like an escrow almost.
Something like it's a smart contract escrow, basically. Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah. A smart contract escrow with like a flow. And really, this is what on the end, how the whole thing worked. And it was purely, through some math and, calculations and so on. And it worked out well. I mean, it was a slower start. Then when people got aware of us, they moved in, and then people moved out again because the Ether price went down or whatever happened. And on the end, funny enough, they all rushed in the moment in the last 7 days, typical FOMO. And we collected literally, I think, like 80% of the money, or like 60% of the money in the last 7 days. Kind of funny, but they all paid the highest price because of that, because they could have also went in the beginning. But people don't seem to like the security; they seem to like the herd mentality rush.
Yeah, I think it's prevalent in the entire industry. Like, I think there's an amazing interview actually with Vitalik with Lex Friedman, when he actually explains a lot of elements that are not working out right now, like, in the in the industry, just because of the pure psychology. It's not because the technology is not working, it's just because people are using it in a different way. Let's put it this way, not to criticize. But
it's,
yeah.
I also think actually it's a good thing. So FOMO, and this whole like thrive, and also this like this egoistic thrive is actually what really like is the motor in actually much of this stuff. And it really is what makes these projects being able to grow and to become a real thing in first. So these are all mechanisms, and they're actually like, good or bad. I guess obviously if you're smart, you might not rush immediately with the herd. Maybe you think first, then you do. But it's up to everybody else everybody for himself to judge how they want to act. But it's funny. There's this nature, and it seems to be always repeating and happening.
So coming back to the mainnet question. Okay, so I didn't forget also.
So we're actually pretty close on launching our public test network that will likely first start out as something that's only run between a few people until we open it up for other people to stake. But it's a test network. It's really meant for us to test towards mainnet. Does it run stable? Does it run well? What's the throughput? How we can make sure that the parameters are right and so on. Mm-hmm. So as it's looking right now, it's looking good. So things are working already, internally really well, and it's now about preparing the public testnet launch. The mainnet launch, I would say 2 weeks TM. No, it's it's definitely not 2 weeks, but no, this will be taking a bit longer, but it will be in the next few months. Let's say that. I mean, obviously, we can't.
But this year, we're talking about like 2020.
Oh, definitely this year. Yeah. I mean, I'm very highly confident to do it. But it's about obviously how much hurdles do we, experience or like that come now in between us, like running the test network, the actual test network, the proof of stake Casper test network, and how stable it runs, and how well it runs, and what hurdles come or not. And that will make us determine, when we start the mainnet. And it's also about preparing that launch, because, when we start that mainnet, people will instantly want to convert their Luxi to Lux, and they instantly want to do this and that. So still a little preparation that needs to be done on that end as well. Ideally, probably people want to instantly have the universal profile migrated to the mainnet and all of that stuff. So it will be a transition phase, right?
Now, look, in October, according to the rumors, there might be like a big move in Ethereum, the entire Ethereum community. So if you actually synchronize these dates, it might be even better, right? So
all planned. No, actually, it's not planned at all. But yeah, it might really synchronize with the dates. I mean, as it looks right now, and from my gut feeling, it could work out in that time frame. Yeah.
Got it.
But let's see. No promises for all the people watching, because I have every time, you say the slightest word, you get like whatever people being hyped in Telegram, whatnot, and like, they pinpoint you down.
It's fine. It's good to intrigue, like a little bit, like people, to make sure that they understand that there's upcoming events, and the roadmap. They can you'll put it you'll share with it on the website. I think your community is already strong, so there's already ongoing discussions. You can join them. I'll share all the links for the people who are more interested, and they can ask more questions, obviously. But the formats of the conversation is about 60 minutes. I just want to also ask you more of a personal question before we wrap up this part, because hopefully we're going to do it again. Once you launch, I'm happy to support you, and so already registered. I urge everyone to register, create their profile, and just play around a little bit with it. Yes. And
you have to share the secret link to do so then, because
yes, I will definitely, and
even more people now.
And but I'm sure, all of those, you're in Germany. And Germany is one of the birthplace of one of the greatest philosophers of all time. And if you take the entire movement of crypto, I'm not talking about I would say people who are completely anarchists, but people who are even just coming from Austrian School of Economics. They understand all the details, why is it needed, why it's a very natural, I would say organic, evolution of money as a social and economical construct. I want to ask you, what is your purpose of doing all of it? What is your purpose of doing this particular project and talking and promoting the self-sovereign identity? And then also, what is your purpose in life? What actually inspires?
Deep questions. Why I'm doing this, because I think it needs to be done, and I feel like that I know how to do it, and it's fun. And actually, really, what I want to see what comes out when this exists, what people will build, how it will evolve, which direction it will go. So for me, it's just curiosity, and also I feel that I want to like move this forward that I already started with Ethereum. I have already worked on the early days and the early pieces and the early way of how we do the thing, and now I want to actually like make it the next level, how we can do this. And somehow it feels like that I can see something that others can't. And I have put that there already for 2 years and nobody has figured it out, even though it was there to look at. I mean, I don't know. It seems that I have to do it. So on the other hand, it's really about like seeing what comes out of this. The money factor is not really my driver. This is just, for me, money is it's a fluid that comes and goes, and I had money and lost money, and it's already been everywhere. So I'm just doing this because it's fun. What's my bigger goal in life? I guess being helpful, doing something that's fun, living life to the fullest. How they say, right?
Like YOLO, right? Okay, no, that's nice. I think a lot of people are actually enjoy what they're doing, like, and the thing that you create is so important. Not only like standards, but generally like visions, and you're continuing to do that. Like, I really appreciate it. I think that you're right. Like a lot of the core developers, like who are doing it, they're undervalued. Like the people don't realize that there is the backbones. There's only few people who are public, and that's, everybody knows them naturally. That's how it's, the psychology of the crowd works. But then there are people who are in the trenches and they're actually building stuff, right? So I want more people to know you, and I'm happy to introduce also with some of your colleagues, who created other important achievements. And I know you've also been featured in several books already, right? So
probably, yeah.
Yeah, we can. You've authored like one of the book, and also you've wrote an I think the entire paragraph, or like in a chapter, even like to
a chapter. Yeah, I mean like an article, a chapter in. So this is a self-sovereign identity book that I have been participating in. Actually, it describes ERC-725 version 2, the one which is the pinpoint or like the basis of the universal profile that you just have seen. I mean, I wrote a book about Meteor.js and things like this, but and obviously my name is in a lot of the Ethereum history books now. I guess that's where I am in the books. There's a few of them, funny enough, which I haven't really read a lot of them because I'm not reading a lot of books. So I've been there, so it's a bit of a different thing.
No, you lived it, and you're building, and that's kind of your responsibility towards the humanity, right? So, listen, I really appreciate what you're doing, Fabian. I will share all the links. I implore everyone who's going to watch it to at least register, to test your platform, to provide the feedback, unbiased feedback, and then once again this year, no exact dates, but like this year, once you launch the mainnet, I think more and more users will join. I really hope that celebrities will pick it up to make sure that adoption will be faster. And I know you already have some of them, like not only from the fashion industry, but from soccer players and like a lot of other singers and stuff. So there's a lot of and everything organic. By the way, I want to mention that if you read the Forbes articles, anything like that's what I was. I was excited to uncover that all the publications are organic. Like, that means the product is actually needed, and people are learning about it not just because they're getting paid, but because it is needed for the current state of the market.
This is how, especially in the big press and all of this all came just by itself, and including actually every press. I mean, we haven't paid for articles.
Yeah,
there's actually one single one we sponsored.
Okay. So one
Interline magazine. Let's say that.
Okay, so you saw
that was not a big one in any case, but it's a good one too to read.
Okay, so I'll share also some links, and I know you're doing it with your wife, right? And also we can disclose it, right? So That's another special union that you have in life. So I wish you both a lot of success, and yeah, happy once you launch it to do it again.
Thanks for having me. It was definitely a nice chat.
Thank you so much, Fabian.